7th of July, 2001, Saturday night, Dairy Farmers Stadium, Cowboys, Sharks, 22nd minute, good guys with the ball, 6-0 up, Martin Lang plays the ball, centre field, 20 out. Jason Ferris from dummy half goes left to Nick Graham, turns under to Adam Dykes, drifting back infield. A pass across the back of the ruck, cuts out Sean Ryan running a decoy line and finds fullback David Peachy. With soft hands, the Peach catches and passes in one motion back inside to the man of the moment, Preston Campbell, the man playing just his 6th game in the number 7 jersey after transitioning from backline utility. Preston flies into the gap, puts on an enormous right foot step that leaves Cowboys fullback Julian O'Neill stationary to score under the post untouched. Is that not one of the most poetic things you could hear as a Sharks fan? What a beautiful time that was. Welcome to another episode of Classic Cronulla Chronicles. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the ET Stand, the Cronulla Sharks fan podcast, where we're talking to the football. Another episode of Classic Chronicles here tonight. We go back to 2001 to a match from round 18 of that season against the Cowboys in Townsville to correspond with the 2024 match against the Cowboys in Townsville this weekend. Scotty Lucino back again for the second week in a row and one of many occasions this year. What do you remember of 2001?
Mate, I remember being a bit sceptical to start the season, not knowing what to expect, losing our poster boy and podcast namesake in ET the year prior. Also, Mitch Healy making his way over to England. But I remember being pleasantly surprised. We were on a nice little streak here around this game, I recall, and getting very excited around finals time, and the rest is history.
Yeah, things were starting to build. We did have a poor start to the season with an opening round shellacking at home against the Dragons, which was very disappointing, a real black spot in our history. I was pretty livid, not only about losing ET and Mitch Healy, I was spewing we lost Brett Howland to the Bulldogs. He was one of my favourite players, very fast, obviously not the best guy under the high ball or tackling, but could score a try. And he was gone as well. We had a few players turn over between that 2000 and 2001 period. And as we look, hooking into the form guide, you're right, there was a little bit of a lull mid-season. It was a bit of a patchy start to the year two. We'll look at that at the end of the year, but running into this, we were sitting 7th. Bit of a recent resurgence, 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. So bizarre. We had a real rough trot there, a whole stack of injuries. Peachy was out for a fair while, as were quite a few others. 16-all draw at home to the Tigers was the first in that run of 5 matches. And then that one was, I remember being there, was real dour. We were pretty ordinary. The Tigers scored 4 tries and their kicker, I think it was, it'll come to me anyway, he missed all 4 kicks that night. Then we drew 26-all at Sydney Football Stadium on a Friday night against the Dragons. We looked better. We butchered that. We're up by 10 and 12 points in that match and gave it up. A late Nathan Blacklock try under the post. That was the same game that Chris Beattie flattened Wayne Bartram, which was a highlight. Admittedly, it was a bit of things started to turn. Peachy came back the following week. We had a few players come back as well. McKenna got moved to the centres with Paul Mellor. That was a big talking point in the media before the match in Canberra where we won 26-12. We then put 40 points on the Melbourne Storm. This is a bit of a lull in the Storm's, I suppose, history in that they didn't make the finals this year or 2002. Basically, anomalies outside of their 2010 premiership, I suppose, salary cap fiasco. So we were starting to turn the corner. We're playing the Cowboys that had found not a huge amount of form, but they were sitting 13th, 2 wins, 3 losses in the last 5. They'd beaten the Warriors 35-18, lost to the Broncos 50-6. Lost to the Storm 38-24, lost to the Roosters 50-24, but then beat the Panthers 26-20. So you look in there, they put 26, 24, and 24 on the Panthers, Roosters, and Storm, respectively. They had a team that could attack. I remember before this match, there was a bit of talk that Cowboys could be outsiders here. They'd only beaten us once in our history prior to this one, but there was talk that this may be the night. So do you have any specific memories about any of these matches in the lead-up?
Yep, I remember the 2 draws. I remember being really frustrated about that. As you said, I was surprised we won that Tigers. Sorry, we drew that Tigers one, giving the poor goal kicking from the Tigers.
Yes,
we were lucky there, I guess. Dragons, really annoyed that we drew that one because we did have a chance to win that one. We were, as you said, we were well in front, and then we get pumped by the Eels, and then it's all glum, and then bang, we go on this streak where we had some really convincing wins. I think it was a 7-game streak that we had there, and went on and made a real run for it after that. So,
yeah, you're right. It was a 7-game streak. We lost the Warriors later in the year, but we did round out the season really with only 3 more losses. Spoiler alert: only 3 more losses that entire season. The guy who missed, it was actually 3 kicks that night for the Tigers, was John Simon. I'm just be honest that I missed that. The other kicker on that night was future Shark for a brief period and Dragon, but we won't talk about that. Hassan Sailor had 1 kick goal that night. So they, I distinctly remember Tigers scoring very late. And John Simon basically having a pretty very gettable kick at Shark Park, and he missed it somehow. So we got out of jail there. But you're right, it was starting to turn the game where Preston first played halfback was so this is his 6th match. If we go back, so sorry, should have done my research a bit better. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It was a loss to the Bulldogs at home on a Friday night, and that was the one actually just after. Sorry, Campbell got moved to halfback in that match from his starting fullback, and then the Tigers game with a 16-0 draw was the first game he started at halfback. That was the game that Matt Rogers' mum had just passed. The minute silence, it was, let's say, affected by the Bulldogs fans and some of the goings on there. So moving into the lineups. So the Cowboys side, we've got, so just bring up so I can read a bit better there. Number 1, Julian O'Neill. So a sorted history there. The wingers, number 2, Trent Lease, and number 5, Brian Jellick. The centers are very young in his debut season, Josh Hannay, with Paul Bowman, the captain and stalwart there. The halves, Chris Shepherd and Nathan Feehan. The front row of John Buttigieg, John Doyle, Tim Madison, former Shark. Back row, Brett Hetherington, Kyle Warren, Glenn Morrison, a bit of a journeyman, but a acclaimed player nonetheless. The bench, Peter Jones, Michael Luck, Daniel Strickland, Jamie McDonald, the coach, Murray Hurst. While the Shark side, well, there's some interesting names in the back line, but gee, it's a good one. So David Peachy, the fullback and captain. The wingers, Brett Gross, Damien Mostyn. The centers, one of my favourite centre pairings of all time, Paul Mellor, Chris McKenna. The halves, Adam Dykes, Preston Campbell. The front row, Jason Stevens, Jason Ferris, Martin Lang. Back row, Nathan Long, Sean Ryan, Nick Graham. The bench, Chris Beattie, Andrew Pearce, Dean Treaster, Paul McNicholas. The coach, John Lang, and that's 1 through 17. Thoughts?
What a side! What a side!
Yeah, so good.
They were only a young side. I think our oldest player was about 28 that year in this team, for that year, and our youngest 21. Whereas the Cowboys in this one had a few, 30-year-old. I think O'Neill was about 31 at that point. Yeah. Peter Jones was aging, and Hetherington. But we just gelled, didn't we? That was just such a good team. Jason Stevens, Presto, Peach, Tingles.
And Stevens have been around for a fair while. He'd been around with the Dragons since the early 90s, and then we signed him Super League. So good stat there. I didn't realise that the youth in the side, obviously there was a lot of youth there, but still you look at Peachy, made his debut in 94, really kicked on in 96. But even having wingers of Brent Gross and Damien Mostyn, we'll talk about it later about the amount of talent or amount of, I suppose, injuries we had in the back line and players we had to churn through. But you wouldn't say Gross and Mostyn are in the top 20, 30, 40, 50 of your Sharks wingers of all time. No. They do a job. But having that centre pairing, which was fairly new, Paul Mellor was always a centre, but Chris McKenna was predominantly a back rower for us, and they're moving him into the centres so good. And the size and speed, and obviously Dykes and Campbell and the rest. So we'll hook into the game, shall we? Because we've got plenty of videos to show you. We're very excited. So we'll open it. So opening points were a penalty goal in the 10th minute. It was a bit of it was a hot and humid evening, obviously for that time of year, mid-season, dry season up there. But still, I do remember reading articles at the time about how that the Cowboys would get an advantage out of that, the climate playing into it. And there was quite a few fights, which bear that in mind up there, maybe teams going troppo, but we'll add to the stage this first video, the opening try, Sean Ryan, 18th minute. Watch the try, the play immediately before that. So, oopsie. Here we go. So we got Campbell, Dykes onto Peachy screaming through. It was a pretty good cover tackle to stop him. He was just
borderline
there.
penalty there anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, got basically holding on and not square and everything else, and then swinging it left. And Stevens way out, and Sean Ryan scores in the opposite corner. So classic, make a break, swing it left. Sharks first
Nice little
try.
juggle on the left hand from Preston.
Yeah, it was.
So
So
good.
I'll just bring back this to the stage there. We'll figure out what happened with the graphics there. But a good start. Unfortunately, the kick was just missed by Campbell on that occasion. Oh, sorry, Jason Ferris on that occasion. Just afterwards, 23rd minute. So not say floodgates were opening, but back-to-back tries. 22nd, 23rd minute. This happens. I've already described it, but you can see it for your own eyes right now as we bring this up to the stage. So Lang, good carry from him, makes about eight meters or so. Reasonable play the ball. Then here we go. Poetry in motion, just a good old-fashioned set play, and then just boom. And Julian O'Neill's kind of Sione Katoa and Latrell Mitchell-esque, but just way more pronounced, just hooking through. And as you said pre-show, how small Campbell was.
Yeah. Looks like a boy playing amongst men out there, doesn't he?
Yeah, and just the way he's the replay.
Just explosives. Look at him. Look at the acceleration. And that step.
And that was the talk. Like I remember a lot of the talk as he moved moved into the halves at the time was that okay, is he a playmaker? He's a half. Sorry, so the role of a halfback is to be a playmaker. Yet he's a finisher. So. How's it going to go? How's it going to go defensively? How's it going to go in attack? Is he a running 5'8"? Should we have Dykes playing halfback? But it just fit perfectly. So
it's a bit like the conundrum the Titans have with Jaden. It's very similar sort of. Where do we play him? Do we play him in the halves? Do we play him on the wing? Do we, what do we do to get the most out of him? But he didn't look out of place at 7, did he?
Get him involved, get hands on the ball. Obviously, history will we'll talk more about Preston. So history will show that he found his spot in number 6 at the Panthers. But anyway, that was his opening try there. Third try, all important. Depending on who you talk to. But one David Bottom will say the third try is always important. So Jason Ferris scored that diving over from dummy half in the 27th minute. So we don't have a replay of that one. It was a pretty straightforward try. So sorry, Jason, if you're watching, we'll show some of your highlights a later time. And then halftime, 18-0 to the good guys. Coming out very early in the second half, a Paul Mellor try. We'll get the visuals up now. And straight out of the gates for the second half. Here we go. Sorry, I'll just get that going again. So, nice ball, short ball into McNicholas, who just pops it out the back. And, Dykes with a cutout pass. Yeah. So McNicholas was really good this season, especially late on. He came on as a wide running second rower. And I think South, it was announced that South were coming back into the comp in 2002. They'd signed him, and I was disappointed about that because he was doing some really good stuff, and especially in that
come on.
Big win in the finals. Campbell hit the post there, unfortunately, from the sideline. So another failed conversion, and we're 22-0 up as we bring that back there. And then Campbell with a cracker of a try in the 55th. This one definitely higher quality than his first, but just the amount of Shark legends involved in the first, I had to make that the standout pre-show. Yep. But here, watch this. We'll provide a bit of commentary for our Spotify listeners, but looking at it, so McKenna with a run out dummy half and not much doing, and he just runs around 3 players wide on the right there, beats a young Josh Hannay, skips out of a tackle, turns O'Neill inside out, and he's covered 60 metres down the right to score. Something, and I think the play immediately prior, we'd shifted right, and Brent Gross got caught, so that got their defence, I suppose, a bit on the back foot. Yep. And it was McKenna trying to take advantage with a run-out dummy half that didn't really go anywhere, but he got that offload away, and then Campbell there's 3 players there.
He didn't deserve to score that try. He just created it out of nothing.
He just watched it, there's the turn of speed, they're all got him sorted, and then
goes back 2 meters.
And then poor Hannay, who's in his first season, caught flat-footed, and then he's just sprinted away from him. And, that was a good way to get a second try and then open the score out to 26-0. We can watch that all day. But, that.
Such a natural player, wasn't he?
And Hannay was never the fastest player getting around, but still, you'd think have him
Just
covered.
that-
And the fact that down the short side, nothing doing, try.
Wow.
So good stuff.
So good to watch.
Yeah. So shortly, oopsie, let's get the visuals back on because I was talking about fights happening up in North Queensland. Well, another one happened in this one. So in the 57th minute, the Sharks had a try disallowed Dean Treaster, what appeared to be a try. Unfortunately, it was the Sharks put an offload that went loose, and one of I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Nathan Feen was coming across in cover, and Adam Dykes inadvertently or tackled him without the ball. Treese picked up and scored. And as you mentioned pre-show, the referee basically had the arm out. The whistle was about to go to the mouth, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been Julian O'Neill or one of the players got in his face. We don't have the highlights. This one got in his face.
I think it was a 5'8".
It was number 6. Sorry, number 6.
Yeah.
So,
and mate, he came at the ref like a locomotive and screaming at him. Like, imagine what Ashley Klein would do if you did that to him these days. It's
he'd end up in the bin. Probably
he'd be in the brawl.
Yeah, probably an 8-point try with you in the bin as well. But so they went upstairs, reviewed it. It rightly was disallowed. Cowboys penalty. They kicked it downfield. First carry. We will show you what happens from here. So you'll see that there's a number of sin bins in there. We will we'll get our commentators' voices on for our Spotify listeners, but we will try and get the
Origin-esque this.
So here we are. Kick for touch. One off. Ex-Shark Tim Madison carries it up. So you got Lang and Stevens in the tackle. Stevens not committing a wedgie. We'll give him that. Kind of tripped over, and then as he's tripped over, having his legs caught, he's lashed out with a foot at Madison. Madison's thrown the ball. Yeah. Everyone's come flying in. And John Buttigieg completely not involved. John Buttigieg and Paul McNicholas are throwing haymakers everywhere. There's Marty Lang in there throwing a few. As I said, it's number 15. Treese is in there. Pierce is in there. I think Peach is in there as well.
The Peach gets involved. It is.
Actually, looking at Paul Mellor's standing off to the side. There's Damien Mostyn there. I suppose maybe that's where he gets into trouble.
Andrew Pearce is there having a crack.
Yeah, Pearce. Look at the size of the collars as well. So there's plenty of collars to grab onto when you're trying to collar. But it goes again. So here it starts and stops 3 times. As the referees and the touchies are trying to get control. I do love this. It's back in the days of the touchies come flying in at a moment's notice. You can tell that the touchies that really wanted to get themselves on TV would come in for no reason whatsoever. Yes, Stevens.
If you look at that, he tangles his leg up and he flips sideways Madison on purpose. Yeah, and with possibility of damaging the knee of Stevens. Right. So I understand him lashing out there. But
Stevens lashed out. He's lucky not to have copped himself. He copped it on report there. John Buttigieg went to the sin bin, as did Paul McNicholas and Damien Mostyn, which isn't quite in the coverage. You just kind of hear the referees as they're showing different stuff. Yeah, you go to the bin, you go to the bin, you go to the bin. And even the commentators are trying to figure out who was sent. So obviously,
I can't recall. I wonder if Stevens saw any time for that.
Well, I'll look that up now. It's a really good point.
Because
the following week.
It's
we played Penrith the following
week. Greek bird Shane Martini-ish there.
Yeah, you're right. It's looking at it, Stevens saw no time, not cited. He started the following week against the Panthers. So
there you go.
So obviously got let off. So maybe it
dealt
was
with on the field.
Dealt with on the field, but he was definitely put on the report. Well, I think that the referee, quote unquote, said, "We're going to put the entire incident on report, but Jason, you're on report for the lash out of the leg."
Yep.
Which they saw the lash out of the leg. These days, you'd probably see that as a sin bin. I think the people would be calling him to be sent, even though it's a very good observation that, Madison did ensure that his tangled legs ended up with him being on the ground. But interesting times. It was a different era up until, 2013 when punches were allowed. Then Gallen and 8 Miles.
Yep.
Saw that.
We don't condone violence here at the ET Stand podcast, but that was so good to watch.
We don't condone violence, but it's good to reminisce. So,
yes.
Especially too, now that I've watched it, I think second or third time seeing Mostyn, I think it was the second or third fight get involved. But I thought if he's done for third man in there, every other player on the field, actually, except for Paul Mellor. Paul Mellor was standing off to the side, but everyone else kind of got involved. And Mostyn he'd be pretty unlucky to be third man in, given that there was about 0.001 of a second behind him. Everyone else was involved as well. So he was just the guy standing closest. Anywho, shortly afterwards, So penalty, Cowboys go downfield again. Next set, 60th minute, this happens. So as we've got the video loading, sorry, that's a spoiler alert, Paul Mellor streaking away. So Nathan Feen across field, lazy pass. Mellor reads it so well, runs
Times it perfectly.
65 metres, fast as well, and then just...
Had some pace, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's such a lanky player, wasn't he? Such a tall player.
Yeah, he was. And he scored quite a few long-range tries for us, and he just, once he got going...
those long legs.
Big guy, hard to stop. Yeah, long legs carried him well. Made a really early debut for South back in the day as well. But it was the Bulldogs. I can't remember who he started with. But yeah, great intercept there. And then unfortunately we missed that goal as well. So actually, no, we did kick that goal. Sorry, that made 32-0.
Presto.
And then we don't have that was a rare conversion. And then shortly afterwards, we got Preston Campbell finishing the first hat trick of his career. So we'll show you that one as the video loads. So we got a penalty, one off the ruck. He's beaten one, actually muscled past two more to score and make it 36-0 and his first career hat trick.
Such a little guy.
Yeah, so
good.
He
take him on though, didn't he? He took him on.
He did. He was tough. He could score some good tries physically as well. There was a late Cowboys try to ex-Shark and Jason Stevens tripper, Tim Madison, to make it 36 points to 6.
Okay.
So we roll through to the talking points. So Preston, gosh, first career hat trick, 6th game at halfback, but really came of age in that one. And I think it was around this time that the competition was starting to talk, and we know how the season finished with him taking the Dally M. Do you have any standout specific memories of Preston at all? Other than the entire season?
Yeah, the entire season for one. But I just loved him on and off the field. He was a top bloke. He always had time for us, for the fans and that. Just an awesome bloke. And he's happy to come around after the games. He was always spending plenty of time out of the sheds, signing autographs and that sort of thing. Even, we'd be on the field at the end after the game, and he'd come across to go to the presentation. He'd stop and have a chat to you. But just explosive to watch on the field. I just loved having him in the team. And as I said earlier, I didn't know what we were going to cop that year. Just in regards to what we'd lose with Healy and you said the Whippet and ET going. And it was just such a nice surprise just how well he came. He just grew into that half position and in the 6 and 7 there and took him on and really had a lot to do with that run, that season that we had in that latter half of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. The obviously it was electric. One game that I distinctly recall and we will cover at a later date was the home game against the Broncos late in the season, late in 2001. That was the John Lang farewell day. It was our last regular home game of the year. We did play the Broncos first week, the finals a few weeks later because we finished 4th. But that day, he was electric. He scored the opening try, set up another, and then he kicked an important goal. We had a late try. Chris McKenna throwing it over his head, and Paul Mellor, I think, scoring in the corner, the right corner in front of Beer Hill. And
is that the Statue of Liberty?
I think it might. Well, it might have been actually. It might. But I'd have to check. I thought, it was. It may well be. I've asked David on that one. I don't think because McKenna did do a few, but I think that might have been.
Yeah, there were a few Statue of Liberties from McKenna.
There was a few. But I believe that wasn't the original Statue of Liberty.
Okay.
But anyway, so it scored. So who scored that one in the corner? Anyway, I know that. So the final try was Paul Mellor. It might have been McKenna that finished that one, scored in the corner. Then Preston kicked an awesome right. So he's a right footer from the right touchline, nailed the conversion to make it 20-16. And then shortly afterwards, Paul Mellor gave Wendell Saylor an absolute bath. In front of the northwestern corner from the ET stand to seal it. So after we looked gone for all money, given there was, I think, two quick tries to the Broncos to turn the game around we were up 14-4. Broncos suddenly led 16-14 and things weren't looking good. They scored 2 tries in about 3 minutes and then we clawed our way back and Preston was just like he was all year, unbelievable. But in that game, he really stood up in a big match at halfback and put the good kicks in they need to and just, created stuff out of nothing. and goal kicked as well. Matt Rogers had come back from his injury, but was injured that week. So good old Preston. I mean, there's going to be talk. I don't want to bring the negativity down. I've heard some people talk about the prelim final against the Knights where he was positioned. Joey Johns did find him out in that. They would defend him at either centre or the wing, and he put 2 crossfield kicks, one to Ben Kendi, the other to Mark Hughes, both taken by them over the top of Preston. So anyway, but I'd argue if you didn't have Preston, you wouldn't have got to the prelim final in the first place.
There you go.
Yeah,
100%.
So yeah, good on you, Preston. And what happened in 2002, we'll cover it at some point, but it's too painful to talk about now, 22 years later. So anyway, thanks, Chris Anderson. 2001 back line. Brett Gross, Damien Mostyn, not guys that roll off the tongue, but they did a job for us that year. Damien Mostyn scored a hat-trick the week before against the Storm. Brett Gross did a good job too and played in the prelim final for us when McKenna was injured. We also had players like Matt Daylight, Ronald Prince, and others. Russell Richardson played 15 matches that year, and then I think was injury affected. Colin Best as well. So it was an interesting
bit of revolving door there, the back line.
Revolving door that we had looking at it.
Plenty of talent there though, on hand across those players.
Plenty of talent.
But
we quite a few. Peachy was out for a while, so we had Preston playing fullback, and then I suppose was allowed him to show his electric ability in the middle of the field, because prior to that he really only covered wing for us, which probably hindered his the opportunities to show how electric he was. Like, I remember run the ball back from kick returns was exciting, but outside that we didn't see ball in hand how much he could do. So the 0-1 back line, interesting. But then mid-season, the catalyst I think for our improvement in form, because we did have some defensive issues, was putting Mellor and McKenna as the centres, and that's the way it remained for the rest of the year. We got Rogers back in the home game against the Knights late 2001, and the other winger during the finals. Well, actually, we had Luke Stewart cover after injuries occurred in the back line in the 2001 semi-final against the Bulldogs. But looking at that semi-final, we had Colin Best and Matt Rogers as the wingers. So
good.
Obviously not full strength there, but showed the depth that we had at the time.
Yep.
Any particular comments on the Matt Daylight's, Ronald Prince's, Damien Mostyn's, Brett Grosses of the world?
No, mate. I used to be a big fan of Russell Richardson's. I remember that until he the famous knock on over the try line. But
the year before, it was around this time. It was announced that Russell would go. He went to South as well for their first season in 2002. Yeah,
Sean Ryan, he was quite a capable back. I used to enjoy watching. He scored plenty of tries. Just bit of an old school player, but it was just sort of in that transitional period, I guess, the game. Where it was that half old school coming into new school, exciting, electric sort of, but still rough, as you saw with the Biff. It was just, it was a good era of footy. It was a really good era of footy. And we had such a strong team that season.
It's great. I mentioned in the regular show last night how the Roosters ruined it in 2002, or that people blame the Storm. I blame the Roosters and their the defensive tactics, and they had some ruck interference stuff before the Storm did too. So 2002 things started to go downhill and become a lot more defensive. But 01, I think, was the pinnacle of just that era, that mix of old school hard heads biffing on in the softening up period when you needed to, and elusive attacking players and fast play the balls. You watch. I was actually watching with Ronan recently the 2001 semi-final against the Bulldogs where we put 50 on, and he's looking at it as a 6-year-old going, this is league, but it's a different game. It's like a lot more open. There's a lot more gaps. It's like there's just quick play the balls everywhere. There's like deep back lines. I think one of us like that. Yeah, we've got the attacking line set about 20 meters deep as we're putting these massive passes on, and so good times. Some of it started to come back since the rule changes, I think. But still, it is a different era. Rolling forward, goal kicking. 2001.
Interesting one, this one.
Without Matt Rogers. So Rogers was deemed out for the season early on in 2001 with a shoulder injury requiring a reconstruction. Then there was the talk that he was off to rugby union, completely separate to that, which was just devastating. And in the meantime, we had a revolving door. Funnily, team of kickers. So we had Jason Ferris, we had Preston Campbell, Adam Dykes kicked us for in parts. We also had Damien Mostyn take a shot in this one. So we had, looking at it, quite a few shots for not much in return. And we're going to concentrate on a specific win over the Northern Eagles later that year, which really demonstrated. We won 40 points to 18. We scored 9 tries, and we kicked a grand total of 2 goals. Jason Ferris kicked 2 from 5, Preston Campbell none from 3, and Adam Dykes none from 1. I felt for Jason Ferris that night. A lot of the tries were out wide, a difficult, windy Shark Bark night, and he gave the kicking tee away, or the kicking sand, depending on who was kicking to Campbell, when it was a shot from pretty much in front, and Campbell missed it as well, poor bugger. So Chris McKenna scored 3 tries that night, but that was one match, and the other game too being this one where we'd scored plenty of points, scored plenty of tries, and couldn't quite convert.
Good with the boot. I found this an interesting one. Did Ferris get injured for him not to kick? Because he kicked 3 or 5 this game.
Yeah, so
that's not horrendous.
I think it was a function of the fact that him and Treester were swapping. So I don't know how many interchanges there were then, but you could see Treester was on the field at times.
Yeah,
so
he
Ferris
was.
Actually did.
Yeah, that try this
You're right. And there was a match earlier in the season against Penrith at Penrith Stadium where Ferris did well. He kicked 5 from 6 and got a field goal as well. So Ferris was handy, could kick it from the sideline, so could Campbell. But just their, I suppose, overall stats and consistency, not quite there. Not sure if it was a function of they were using tees at the time. Some were still using sand. Whether it was just the lack of probably technology. The new tees they've got now are just awesome for consistency. But anyway,
again, it's just that transitional period.
Yeah,
into the new technology.
Look, 10 years prior they were toe poking still. So
I still do.
But only way to do it. 2001 Cowboys team, where I've got Tim Madison there, given his former Sharks prowess and the fact that he scored the 4th try of his career based on those stats there. They had the beginnings of something. You're right. They did have some youth and experience there, and they were starting to turn the corner a bit of the chat around them in the gun. Or are they going to win? Are they going to win? Ultimately, they weren't much chop again, but they had some handy players there, a lot of Origin reps. So did you have any comments on that era of Cowboys side?
Yeah, I thought, look, they didn't have a heap of names, but I thought, young Josh Hannay, he went on to have a great career, and this was his inaugural season. Julian O'Neill, he was probably what I guess you'd say their marquee. Out of the lot, he was a bit of a club hopper. He went all over the place, all over England, and then came back and a bit of a journeyman. And Buttigieg, there's not a great standout team on paper, but they had some good players and they were starting to build.
Yeah, you look at, Origin representatives in there at the time. So O'Neill, it was his final season before going to England, but John Buttigieg and John Doyle both played the 2001 Origin series there, basically kind of that team pre-Origin 1 where Queensland won by 1,000 at the old Lang Park before they demolished it. There was a lot of talk pre that game going, they're under strength and this, that, and the other. And I remember Buttigieg and Doyle really ripping in that match. John Doyle, for the Roy and HG fans, Roy and HG called him Roy because the actual actor or person that plays Roy and HG's name is John Doyle. So that was a pretty funny anecdote for them. But yeah, John Buttigieg was always a as we saw with the fight, but a real hard runner, real hard nut. And Paul Bowman as well was a mainstay in the centres for Queensland. So they had those capabilities there. Nathan Feen would eventually play for New Zealand after some controversy over how he qualified for New Zealand while he's playing for the Warriors. I think it was Grandma Gate as to whether his grandma was actually born in New Zealand or not.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so that was a side point. But they not the best team. Glenn Morrison was always highly regarded. There was always talk about him playing Origin for New South Wales, having played for the Tigers and grown up there, but was seen to be forgotten up in North Queensland. But they would take another 4 years before they made the finals in 2005. Actually, no, 2004, so only 3 years before they made the finals in 2004. So things were starting to change for them. And then obviously grand final in 2005. And then that brawl. Gosh, different era. We've chatted about it as we were going through. the fact that it started and stopped 3 times, I think if it happened these days, like both teams would be sitting out the following week.
Yep.
Yeah, so
There'd be about 6 players left on the field. That's about it, mate, at the end of it. But
I mean, Steve-O could throw them with a besom as well, and obviously he lashed out with a foot, and then it erupted while he was still on the ground, really. So I'm surprised he wasn't throwing them. Marty Lang, he did comment about him throwing a few. I do remember a game against, it was the Magpies in 1999, where he got sat down for 10 minutes for unleashing on someone. I can't remember who.
Yeah, he just had no fear. He didn't. Yeah, I swear his dad must have got him just running at brick walls as a kid. Yeah, just saying go your hardest, because he just did not care what was coming at him. He just hit it as hard as he could. So he wasn't. He didn't care. If he was gonna cop a punch or not. He was just in there just throwing absolute haymakers.
So tough and good. I think Martin Lang these days is actually working for a university doing studies on brain injuries and the like. He's a real academic these days. I'd have to look it up, the exact qualifications he got, but I heard him interviewed recently. I think it was SEN, and he's very well spoken. Complete opposite of what you think looking at him. He's very fit these days. He's really trimmed down. He's right into his fitness, and I think he also mentioned, I have to look this up, but he was a fullback coming through as a junior, didn't have the talent, and the way that he made first grade was by basically turning himself into that. He just went, okay, I've got to be tough. I want to be big. Let's go. I don't have the speed. I don't have the
battering
skill.
Ram.
And gee, wasn't he a battering ram?
Him and Nathan Long together. How good was that?
Yeah, just bang.
What a sight!
So good. Just with the flowing hair, and that was the 90s at its finest. Just
really laying the platform for the halves, weren't they?
Rolling forward, and I think that there was. I think I saw Martin Lang pass twice. Once was in the lead up to that Russell Richards drop ball in the 2000 semi-final or quarterfinal against Brisbane, unfortunately. And the other was the ET farewell game, actually was swinging it. And I remember the crowd almost gave a standing ovation where Martin Lang was 2 off the ruck and everyone thought he was just going to run, and he kind of did obviously double pump, showed and passed, and we're like, who is this guy? He's a ball playing prop now. What's going on?
The olden day Tom Hazelton.
Exactly, yeah. So, absolutely.
That's so good.
With Origin honours to boot. Anywho, so the fallout: Sharks 36, North Queensland 6. So Preston with the first hat trick of his career. Paul Miller with a double. Jason Ferris, Sean Ryan the tries. Ferris 3 from 5. Campbell 1 from 2. Damien Mostyn with a left-footed conversion from the right touchline, just missing. So none from 1, defeating the North Queensland Cowboys 6. Tim Madison try. Julian O'Neill goal. The Sharks, what happened there? So we didn't finish 45th. That was a slip of my finger there. The Sharks finished 4th. I think it was so 45th. What are we now in baseball or something with 1,000 teams? Sharks finished 4th. 15 wins, 9 losses, 2 draws, while the North Queensland Cowboys 15th. 6 wins, 18 losses, 2 draws. One observation I had the 2001 season was they played 26 rounds and they played 26 matches. So that's more than they play these days with 27 round comp and 24 matches, 3 buys. Quite a few draws in this era too, pre-Golden Point. So the Cowboys had 2 draws, and looking through the table there was quite a few other teams had draws as well. And just it was obviously we know how the finals went, unfortunately, but it was just a different era. Yeah, so that's what makes it all the more. Yeah, anyway, I won't. Boldo got angry when we covered the 2001 Bulldogs semi-final game of what might have been. Yeah, and I almost feel like 99 is the ultimate heartbreak. This one was it was opportunity lost. It was
rubbed salt into the wounds, didn't it?
Yeah, it was there to be taken.
Could have been.
If we got,
I remember going out to that Knights match and just thinking, we got this. We go to the grand final.
And then that Chris Beattie penalty, and that match is available, unfortunately. But the Rogers try, the pitch try. Actually, on a side point on that, Matt Rogers recently, I've read his book a few months ago, and he talks about Dean Treaster kicked from dummy half for his kick. And Treaster actually had his kicking license taken off him by John Lang about 4 or 5 years prior for putting a couple of shockers in. And then on that occasion, so Treaster goes short side, caught who was it? The Robbie O'Davis out of position and puts this wobbly kick that Rogers immediately in his book talks about how he was following half-hearted because he thought, it's just going to take a bounce and go out.
Yeah.
And then he saw that O'Davis was out of position and the bounce, like it'd take 1 or 2 wobbly bounces and set up. And he's like, oh, I've got to get there. So he's legging it because he's like, I'm never going to, because his best mate's with Dean Trista, never going to hear the end of it if I don't get this on the end of this one. So he slid through and scored. So
good.
That brought it back to 6-4. Paul Marquette dropped the ball. David Peachy ran 75 metres to then put it down a millimetre inside the dead ball line. And then the second half is history. So anyway, we won't focus on that. We'll focus on the fact that we had an awesome win in Townsville on this occasion. And hopefully we continue our form up there and do the same this weekend. For those of you who do remember this or want us to cover any other classic matches from 2001, there's a whole stack in the bag that I want to cover at a later date. The 49-30 win over the eventual premiers, the Knights at home with the Peachy hat-trick, the win over the Broncos at home, and plenty others. Just put them in the comments, hit like and subscribe. If you've got other matches this year that you want us to cover, corresponding historic matches, please do. Any closing comments from yourself?
Bring back the Biff.
Bring
back the Biff. I want to see the rematch this Saturday night.
Funnily enough, Reg Reagan with David Baldwin's friend Matthew Johns became a thing just the following season in 2002. So they were calling for the Biff to come back when the Biff was still there, comparatively speaking.
There you go. So, might have had something to do with this match.
Maybe. Yeah. So I'm sure there's some. Or actually, I have to look up when was the Gordon Tallison. Was it Gordon Tallison, Ben Ross? Gordon Tallison, Joel Clinton. That was an absolute carve-up. But anyway, that was borderline assault. But anyway, thanks everyone. And be sure to hit the like and subscribe. In the meantime, up Cronulla. Go Sharks.
Up.